Tonight on Ground Crew Command Radio, what the Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0 that the Dark Ones are manufacturing will look like, which countries will be used, and no, it's not Cuba and Russia this time. Finally settling the issue of Three Eye Atlas from military insiders and how it will be used to accelerate cosmic disclosure if Red October goes well enough. What Red October will likely look like and how to dissolve the perfect storm that the Dark Ones are preparing for this month. Yes, it will likely peak around Halloween, unsurprisingly. What the positive military need from us to ensure that Red October goes the way it needs to go to complete the liberation of the US, and then inevitably the rest of the world follows. This and so much more on tonight's huge episode of Ground Crew Command Radio. This is your loving servant, the unknown light. And welcome back. This is your loving servant, the unknown light warrior, coming to you live from the headquarters here at Ground Crew Command, formerly radio. I don't know if I should call it podcast or video. Neither of those sound right. But anyway, we'll come up with something as the planetary liberation steam rolls ahead without anything stopping it. And of course, we've got the October 6th and 7th full supermoon mass meditation coming up Monday night US times, early Tuesday morning pretty much everywhere else. And that is going to be yet again another pivot, another big shift in timeline. We have to hold things steady and move things forward, as always, consistently. And I'll be getting more into that, as in the scientific energetic fundamentals of why and how the 144K in particular, there's certainly other wonderful Starseed groups out there, are able to move things ahead of schedule. And I'll be getting to, I guess, only 3 case studies that I can remember off the top of my head when it comes to that. And for those of you who are new and haven't joined the 144K, ahead of schedule meaning the planetary liberation process and the so-called plan, synonymous with the positive military. Moving that ahead of schedule, but doing it consistently. That's the real secret. And again, you could call this planetary liberation secrets in a way. And I'll be getting more into that later, as promised in the article for this huge episode of Ground Crew Command, bringing it to you the latest in planetary situation report. So let's quickly jump into, and by the way, if you do want to join the global 144K mass meditation this Monday the 6th or Tuesday the 7th of October 2025 for a advanced mass meditation, just go to 144karmyoflight.org. The link is just below here. Check it out. If you like what you see on that particular site, go ahead and join. You get plenty of support and tools, both free and paid, to discover and realize your Starseed mission. So let's move on with the whole, again, the typical, or should I say stereotypical, engineering of events, because without any contrived artificial engineering behind the scenes, there is no war. And again, we're going to stop this one as well, like we've stopped the rest through our collective mind power. And that is what it is. Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. In process, many of you would have already heard that there's at least 2 US naval fleets in the Caribbean, not too far away at all from Venezuela, to, again, create the impression of looking like the US is going to attack and invade Venezuela. Because not Russia, but China has nuclear missiles in Venezuela. According to Gene Decode, these missiles are covered in lead, and I suspect other forms of covering and neutralizing the presence of nuclear warheads in Venezuela. They are pointed straight at the US within easy reach, and they're hypersonic missiles as well to make sure they get there. And at a glance, this looks like your typical AI-driven repeat or reruns of history, where there's a sort of time, well, I would say a literal time loop, but within a higher timeline, not a different timeline, a higher timeline than this occasion. So it still looks like you're still moving ahead in linear time. And the reason why I said higher timeline as opposed to not an parallel or alternate timeline is because all the whole alternate parallel timelines and alternate parallel universes thing, that was never a true source-derived organic reality. That was another dark AI game. AI video game. That's all that was. And all the alternate parallel timelines and universes of this universe have been pretty much undone by now. I'm not 100% sure if it's completely all removed, all these alternate parallel timelines and universes of this universe, because there's always other universes that are simply other universes that are organic and source derived, just not this one. I'm talking about alternate parallel timelines and kind of like a replica universes of this universe. There's a difference. It's hard to verbalize, so bear with me. But all of that was another, albeit much higher level, dark AI game. Being resolved, just, finishing things up, which Saturn and Neptune going retrograde has a lot to do with, and I'll be getting more into that as well, because that's huge. So, back to the Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0, because it's all connected and it's hard not to go on a tangent like I just did. Of course, China will be stopped. The CCP is still largely under dark control. Only about 20, maybe 30% of it broke off or defected and switched sides. And this is like 2 years ago at this point. And but there's still a problem. The bulk of the CCP are as dark and black-hearted as it gets, tightly controlled. Many of them AI clone types, heavily implanted, run by Black Goo AI. Nothing new there. Most world leaders were in that sort of situation. Not so much the case. But yeah, the CCP, they're a nasty one. They're a nasty piece of work. Tightly controlled by the physical dark network. I can't use the C word, by the way, because I'm trying not to get banned on YouTube. And yeah, that's all ready to go. They're ready. I don't know if all these, God knows how many batteries of hidden nuclear hypersonic missiles in Venezuela are actually, how can I put it? There's armed, then there's activated. I don't think they're quite at the activated stage. Now, there's special forces already in Venezuela doing their thing. The whole thing is in check. It's being checked, right? So it's not going to be an issue. But as always, the positive military, aka white hats, the dark ones are chomping at the bit, salivating over this, thinking this is what's going to save them. Nothing new there. All right. Obviously, things are already happening in the Middle East. But the real huge nuclear war scare event is this one. And they're going to create the scare event one way or another, whether it's this one or from the Middle East that Russia's more involved in. The scare event that's going to really wake up, or do a lot, let's just say, to wake up the unconscious majority, which, again, that wake up factor, I mean, it's unfortunate and wrong that it has to be done through a scare event, but you and I, as Starseeds, can relate to the fact that it's often some sort of personal life crisis that forces us to either wake up, learn something important, and grow, and make an important discovery in the process. Same thing here, same principle, just at a collective level. And ironically, it's going to accelerate planetary liberation, but because it's going to essentially force consciousness raising, the wake up factor within the unconscious majority. A majority that's continuously shrinking, I have to say, but we needed to shrink a bit more, okay? Because the higher their consciousness, the more Gaia is able to ascend without us having to do the work and pay our dues with the 144K mass meditations. Advanced. Because consciousness is a thing in and of itself. It has its own, level of density, depending on how high or how low consciousness level is. So obviously low consciousness is more dense, attracts more dense energy, affects the grids. Now at the peak of this scare event, which most of you have heard about for how long? Years now. At the peak of that, we have to hold the grids together. All right, hold the light, hold our ground to make sure there's no dip in the timelines. And I'll be talking more about that. Now, it's looking like it'll happen mid to late October. By the looks of it, we're going to see. And And that, again, has a lot to do with Red October itself and the timing of Red October. As always, as you've heard, timing is everything. You've heard it all before. And I want to quickly get the Three-Eye Atlas issue out of the way. I'm going to take a pause on Red October for now. Three-Eye Atlas, just to settle that. Military insiders through Gene Decode, have said that it is an Anunnaki ship, negative ETs, and it is being escorted by predominantly Solar Warden Terran ships for the most part. It will pass by here, apparently, and these are not my words, to pick up, I think the term was refuse. Certain dark beings that made a deal and agreed to leave, essentially surrendering. They're going to pick, I don't know how many, I don't think it's a lot. They're going to pick them up and they're going to leave. And don't worry, they will be dealt with at a later time, when the Terran human empire, galactically speaking, is more fully restored, which is another story for another day. Understandably, there's a lot of stories about Three-Eye Atlas. I just want to get that one out of the way. Now, it can be used quite easily to accelerate cosmic disclosure if Red October goes well, depending on, as always, how well something else goes that precedes it, and how well that something else goes depends on what higher timeline our 144K meditations can shift things to. All you 144K veterans know all about that. You've heard it all before. An operation is an operation. Again, the Dark Ones are salivating over their current plan, because they think they're in control, that they're going to use this to try to create the fake alien invasion thing happening. It's going to look like that for a while, because technically it is a negative ET ship that's coming in to save them with some magic super weapon. That's checked as well. And then, as always, at the last moment, it'll be used to, I suppose, accelerate cosmic ED disclosure in a positive sense, in a positive form, per the high timeline that the 144K is going to shift things onto on the super full moon of October 6th. And, of course, the new moon again, 2 weeks after that. 2 timeline jumps will achieve that. Let's make that happen. God knows we've got the track record for that. So again, the classic game theory games you've heard all before. So, Red October. Okay, we're finally here. And the main reason why I'm actually saying that with more confidence than ever, because we've had, 5 or 6 Red Octobers come and go, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. This time, there's a 98% chance it's definitely going to happen, because of the fact that there's already troops on the streets. Already troops on the streets in large numbers, including military equipment. Dark mayors and governors of mostly blue cities are clearly losing it. They're really getting spanked by their higher ups within the dark physical network. So that's how you know it's already there in terms of soldiers on the streets. We've always heard that come the time of the event, there will be soldiers on the streets. Of course, it's predominantly the US only. As I said 100 times before, when the US goes, as in gets liberated, the rest of the planet follows. Not long after that at all. So what it'll likely look like and how we can dissolve this growing and brewing perfect storm that the physical dark network is preparing this month is they're going to try to coincide. Well, let me start from step one, because there's always several things that they pull within their operations. First of all, bombs, explosions in many locations. Most MK Ultra victims will likely be activated. All right. There'll be another attempt at so-called mass protests that will quickly deteriorate into civil unrest. Kind of like a repeat of the No Kings protest that happened a few months ago. And obviously, they fell way short of numbers to really make that happen. And that happened on a lower timeline than what we're on now. So things are looking good, very much in our favor. But it doesn't mean that there's not going to be some strife, because they're going to throw everything at this. It doesn't mean that some people are not going to get hurt. Okay. And it doesn't mean they're going to laden and infect the grids, especially within blue cities and blue states. God, the color blue is really getting a four-letter name to it, isn't it? At least in the US. Not fair, but anyway. And this is likely to start peaking basically from now onwards, especially mid-October onward, when Halloween season and those satanic energies start picking up and start building. And they're going to try to coincide all of this, obviously with the usual rituals, coincide all of this with the build-up of military escalations and escalations of tension with the US and Venezuela, and obviously Israel and Iran and Russia, most likely as well. Although my intuitive prediction, is the whole Israel-Iran war, they're going to peak at around this full moon. And because I don't see how they're going to try to, set off both theaters at the same time. And I don't think the positive military are going to like that very much at all. And then they're really going to start up, probably from about the 20th, they're really going to start up the Venezuela situation with another Cuban Missile style crisis, tense standoff that'll last probably a good week, if not 2 weeks. And that'll be around the new moon period, because the dark ones, we know what they're like. They're so religious with their astrology and cosmic alignments. Thank God for the 144K. To my knowledge, we're the only Starseed mass meditation groups that consistently, diligently do these 1 to 2 hour mass meditations every full moon and new moon, that the dark ones center so much of their activities and operations around. God knows they ritualize their asses off during every lunation. So that's how it's looking as of this current timeline, pre-October 6 full moon, 144K mass meditation. Post full moon and 144K meditation, as always, the timelines will jump upward again, and we'll see where the chips are going to land again. Okay? And this is driving the dark ones crazy because we shift the timelines significantly, if not much higher, every full moon and new moon. Very hard for them to see past that because it's a different timeline to properly plan things. Never mind the crazy, insane, the exotic technology that the light forces are using against them as well, which can now outcompete with their exotic technology. So that's, again, the context and perspective you need to have. And clearly, it's all happening. So mass civil unrest, chaos in the blue cities, whilst trying to trigger world wars in the Middle East, and then Venezuela nuclear standoff shortly thereafter, pretty much all in a 1 month. So October is going to be a huge, red, pivotal, game-changing month. August and September, well, really for how many years now, but especially this August and September, was clearing the behind-the-scenes energetics and exotic technologies that had to set up an October that holds for us all, for our freedom, a very totally realistic, grounded in reality, possibility of that breakthrough at the physical plane surface. Always remember that distinction. Physical plane surface. Very different ballgame in some respects. Okay. Which then perfectly dovetails into the next critical thing that I need to report to you. What the positive World Military Alliance and, of course, off-world and inner Earth groups need from us to ensure that Red October goes the way they needed to complete the liberation of the United States and therefore then the world. Now, the short answer is to clear the emotional bodies of the surface population and anything that manipulates that, and hold the grids intact so that they don't collapse or fall when the emotional freakout starts. With the civil unrest, MK Ultra victims, activated bombs, so-called terrorist bombs, and of course the tense nuclear standoff, which is not necessarily going to be with Venezuela per se. It'll be more with China, the way the missiles were in Cuba, but the nuclear standoff was with Russia. It'll be more with China. And again, it'll be interesting to see the timing of that, because again, on this current timeline, there's no guarantee that that'll happen within October. They may do the proverbial peak of their dark rituals on Halloween night, which is the 31st of October, and then pull the physical ripcord on November 1st. So it could be early November that the tense nuclear standoff with China actually occurs. All right, so as always, as Starseeds, we're here to hold the grids, keep them intact through primarily 144K mass meditations every lunation. That consistency, bi-weekly consistency, is critical. So, what manipulates the emotional bodies of the surface populations that threatens the grids, which then threatens the timeline that we've worked so hard to achieve for since 2017? So, our comrade, Cobra, distilling and relaying the information from the resistance movement. Biochips. Okay, biochips predominantly within the surface human population. Nanobots as well. Both of those things distort incoming information in people's minds. It screws with the mental body, of course. It's not just beliefs that do that. It's also, whatever implant and interference of any kind. And to quote Cobra, these biochips are lurker infested, dark energy anomaly, entangled psychical devices around 30 micrometers in diameter, which create a spherical scalar dark field within a radius of 30 meters. 30 meters. I'm not sure what that is in yards. You'll have to look it up. I'm sorry. 30 meters around the implant. So it covers the whole house. If an individual is in a house, covers the whole house, which then attracts more dark energies and makes targeting of directed energy weapons on your house a lot easier. It kind of invites it. Don't worry, we're getting onto it. They directly influence the lowest two subplanes of the etheric plane within that 30-meter surface layer of that respective subplane of the etheric plane and maintain the quantum and subquantum anomaly there. All right, so it supports that. Gives it like a little cover to be within. Indirectly, they also influence the rest of the etheric plane and also astral and mental planes within that 30-meter layer of the surface of the planet, both physical, etheric, and astral. This is now one of the main reasons for hopelessness and despair the surface population is experiencing. Okay. These biochips are quite powerful and actually drastically distort one part of human personality. The light forces are already clearing them, but clearing process will definitely take longer than October 10th. Okay. So there was a goal, a major milestone to clear the quantum and subquantum anomaly, which is like the swamp that the swamp creatures can comfortably exist within and hide within by October 10th. But these biochip implants, they are in the way of that, basically. Once they're removed, we can go, for lack of a better term, to use street terminology, full hog on clearing the subquantum anomaly within that 30-meter layer of the surface of the planet, both physical and non-physical. And as always, things are in the works to make that happen. So you get an idea of where things are heading and what's required to free the surface of the planet. Then you have something called, I can tell it goes by more than one name, but anyway, reality generators, almost certainly run by negative AI, because there's still some of them around. Reality generators, other people call them overlays, reality overlays, an overlay over the real organic reality. Reality generators are huge scalar devices that create a low frequency reality, quote unquote reality. One network of reality generators was built deep within Earth the Earth's crust 26,000 years ago when the quarantine was created. Well, there's actually a bit more to it than that and goes much further back than that at high levels. But the high level stuff has been removed. That's the good news. Because there were many, all sorts, all manner of reality generators at all levels. But I digress. Another network was created very close to the surface in 1996 with reality generators imported from Orion. The old Atlantean network is almost cleared, but the surface network from 1996 is a bigger problem. Again, on the surface here, physical surface, plane. As most of those devices are situated in secret military bases and installations. Okay. So, positive military, they're working away at cleaning out the militaries. Again, most of the attention is with the US military. Apparently, the Russian military is the cleanest. That's a good 90% clean. And they're certainly going to get it to 100%. So they're not going to be a huge issue once these biochips that also connects people with the lurker itself, among God knows what else, and holds the quantum and subquantum anomaly in place within the surface 30-meter area. All these so-called reality generators can be found and cleared relatively quickly in short order upon these biochips being removed. Okay, and so I'm not going to say anything further to that to not give away too much. Again, veteran, 144K veterans can put two and two together in terms of what's going to be happening in the coming days. And so we're able to zero in on the right targets, shall we say, in the right sequence, because it's all about sequencing. All right, I learned that in my early grid work days a long time ago. It's all about sequencing, removing this or that or the other at the right time at a certain order to expedite. All right. Now, keep in mind, biochips, there might be 30 micrometers in diameter, which is as tiny as it gets, really extremely tiny, but they're connected and quantum entangled with the outer collective field, morphogenetic field, quantum field, electromagnetic field, that just how can I put it? It's like trying to see your way through a dust storm, you know, with the occasional desert fly or wasp or whatever giving you a little sting. Now, can you imagine what that's going to be done when that dust storm is cleared through the removal of these biochips? And to give you how powerful one little chip is, I'll refer back to Q the Storm Rider, who reported on what they're called superconductive room temperature microchips, which was stolen, taken from the dark ones by the positive military back in 2014, which is what the Malaysian airline flight MH370, whatever it was, the long lost, well, it's not really lost, but anyway, Malaysian aeroplane that got missing in 2014. Yeah, that was the white hats grabbing those superconductive room temperature microchips that are so powerful that, quote, they can control a whole world, they can hide whole worlds, which I suspect is another form of overlay or reality generators. Okay. These are tiny little things that can be held in whatever, obscure, unassuming office building somewhere. And that's the kind of thing. I'm just giving you a basic idea of what the kind of thing that we're dealing with here, of how powerful the right kind of advanced enough microchip can be. So, again, you veterans know, okay, I see what we need to do now. So, once that's dealt with, the surface network of, in this case, the Atlantean network, which is almost cleared, surface network, which is now the bigger problem within the military and agencies, totally can be dealt with if we clear the dust storm or the swamp. All right, moving on to what special forces of the positive military are enduring right under our feet, and how they suffer casualties when clearing remaining tunnels and dams. Now, one thing, again, this is from Gene Decode, one thing that they do is the Cabal either has children or play the sounds of children screaming inside rooms, or they're more like large wards, but which is a form of psychological warfare on the special forces troopers. But said rooms, or the door to get into them, are almost always booby-trapped. So they have to take their time discovering that, disentangling that, deactivating that, all the while hearing children scream. You know what it's like to defuse a bomb, right? We've all seen those movies for how many decades? 444, where they got to carefully, slowly, while they're sweating bullets, disentangle that wire, pull that wire off, or whatever. We've all seen those movie scenes, right? In action movies. While hearing children scream. I guess worse than that, they constantly encounter children with mixed DNA. They mix their DNA with animals and insects. And these children in this mixed state, I don't want to get any more graphic than that, are begging and screaming for them to shoot them. For the special forces to shoot them, to put them out of the misery. And, for the umpteenth time, it's another stark reminder of why we do what we do. Why we don't spend 20 minutes in our mass meditations. We spend a full damn hour or two every 2 weeks to make sure this sort of complete, crazy, hellish events no longer occur on Goddess's sacred body. That's just effed up. And we're succeeding, because that dovetails into the next point. What percentage of dams are left to be cleared, and primarily on which continent? We're now down to closer to 90%. About 2 months ago, we was 80%. We're closer to 90% because of, in large part, because of our consistent timeline jumps triggered by consistent bi-weekly mass meditations. I don't think the light forces are just doing everything themselves. It's a team effort. We have to play our part. That's just the way it works. So, and that's fantastic news, because 90% of all dams and tunnels cleared, that means less incredibly negative energy coming out of those dumps, infecting respective grids, Gaia's grids, infecting the human collective subconscious and that grid that slows and ladens our ascension, our planetary ascension, therefore, trying to get to that event timeline. It slows it all down. That's why we keep on doing what we're doing. So the general, let me see here. All right. The general order and plan of disclosure for waking up the majority to minimize the time required for planetary liberation. Right? Because we're awake, but we're suffering from the waiting for the unconscious majority to awaken as well. Not that galactic family reunion is necessarily completely dependent on that, but it still does heavily influence it. All right. Because like I said earlier in the show, consciousness is its own thing, it's its own energy. Lower consciousness or unconsciousness is heavy, dense. And the majority being there, ladens. Our ascension, Gaia's ascension, and timeline jumps. But, obviously, we're heading in the right direction pretty fast. So, there was one lady, in terms of waking up the majority and the plan, the general order of disclosure. Unfortunately, I can't remember her name. Wonderful lady who works on the grids in her own unique way with her teams. Interviewed by Michael Sutler barely a week ago. She said that, again, as far as the unconscious majority and mainstream is concerned, they have to, the positive light forces and alliance, they have to disclose earthly, physical, surface level stuff, such as what's been causing autism to go through the roof, exposing vaccines and COVID, and all of that. I hope that doesn't get me banned off YouTube. Anyway, and exposing the underground child trafficking and all of that stuff, the Epstein list, exposing all of that. Once that's done, then they can move on to underground tunnels and dams, classified military information, shortly followed by disclosure on ETs. All right. Indigestible pieces that the unconscious majority can digest at a pace that they can handle. Otherwise, the freak out factor may drop the grids. Okay, may drop the grids because we're talking billions of people. All right. It's sort of a tricky, it's like a double-edged sword. It wakes people up, but you got to hold the grids when they're in the initial stages of the freak out factor. And if we can do that, then we get the benefit. Then they wake up shortly after the freak out without the grids dropping because we were holding them together through our 144K mass meditations. Do you see how it's got to be played? So that's the deal there. Smaller, digestible disclosures. And to that effect, at what point, it's always the big questions, first and foremost on our minds as active starseeds or light workers, and that is at what point will it be safe for galactic family contact before the event? All right, that's the main point. And how to reduce the suffering among starseeds who are awake, having to do the waiting. All right. First of all, removing remaining dark networks on the physical plane, removing directed energy weapons, implants, subquantum anomaly on the physical surface. They got to be removed. All right. Remaining DUMs that, many of them inevitably contain exotic weapons. Never mind the stuff that's already on the surface. So removing all of that, if all that's removed, we're looking at a time window for safe galactic family contact, possibly even physical reunion, post 11/11 window. Okay, post 11/11 window of 2025. By the time we make it to January, especially February, March 2026, then it's, really an inevitability. But there will be an attempt to shoot for this post 11/11 window. As always, all depending on how Red October goes. So if there's any, if you need a motivator to participate in 144K mass meditations every full moon and new moon, well, there you go. The more we clear, the more inevitable, or should I say quicker and safer it becomes. So, yeah, post 11/11 window. Now, what's really going to help with this in a big way, because essentially this is Source saying, okay, let's finish up with clearing whatever's left that we haven't cleared in the past, is Neptune and Saturn going retrograde back in Pisces. That provides a golden opportunity to do this. Now, Saturn going retrograde in Pisces, that's already happened on, I think it was 1st of September. It went retrograde back in Pisces, and Neptune going retrograde on October 17th. All right. That's really going to help to find the last remaining stuff, because it's not just to just complete, but ensure everything gets a final looking over, that to ensure any last final thing has not been overlooked, is found, cleared for the event timeline. Now, this includes internal shadow work stuff as well, not just external. All right. And Saturn is about, many of you know your astrology. Saturn is all about a complete overhaul and rebuilding of structures for the 5D world and systems of the 5D world to bring into concrete manifest form into the physical plane of the surface of the planet included. And when it comes to Neptune, the best way to describe Neptune going retrograde from October 17th back into Pisces as well is best well put by one particular astrologer, Rising Sign Astrology on YouTube is the channel name. He said, the end of all illusion. Because whenever Neptune goes in retrograde, it really is the entire swamp, water and mud of the swamp just disappearing, or the tide going out of a beach, and you can see all the jellyfish and crabs and whatnot, and the rocks all sort of exposed when the tide goes out. That's what Neptune retrograde means. Saturn retrograde, sort of the same thing, but not so much about illusions, more about systems and structures that don't support the manifestation of the 5D world here on the surface, found, overhauled, transformed, and a new one built to bring into manifest form our 5D world. And that's going to last till early February I think February they both go direct again in Aries. I believe it's first degree, which means, yeah, we can move forward from the start, from scratch, in certain respects, at least in an astrological sense. So you can see where, again, contextualizing things, right? You can see how it's all looking with this, inclusion, or when you add to the overall equation and context the astrology of especially Saturn and Neptune going retrograde in Pisces. And that's going to support us to ensure, everything is out of the way, rebuilt, restructured for the 5D world come February. The science of how the 144K consistently, again, key word, otherwise it's kind of pointless, to be frank, consistently moves things ahead of schedule in terms of the planetary liberation process and the 3 case studies that supports this, because I don't believe in just being positive, if you're ungrounded about this. So, track record of such achievements, all right, where better than expected results, and these are not my words, by the way. This is third-party verification. Better than expected results and ahead of schedule was reported with the massive and dangerous underground operations of what I call the Battle of Midpoint from August 21st to November 21st, 2021. And I certainly can't forget how nasty that period of time was, which only the 144K was doing mass meditations every 2 weeks for 2 hours per meditation, advanced, that lo and behold, we saw from this third-party intel site, that whole operation went, quote, better than expected. Better than expected means higher timelines. It means less casualties by the light forces. It means faster completion of whatever operation. Okay. Next, we got the Black Stone held under the in the underground in the Urim military base in Israel, where an ungodly amount of darkness was. It was like the center point for an ungodly amount of darkness swirling around it throughout the Middle East. All right. Got cleared, quote unquote, unexpectedly, quickly, and smoothly. All right. And I'm hardly paraphrasing. I do recall it, but I'm hardly paraphrasing. I just don't have the time and resource to go look it up exactly, the exact line or quote. And of course, the clearing of implant remnants in the light forces, all light forces, happened ahead of schedule. Some say within the surface population of the physical plane as well, because we're talking, implant remnants here. Cobra was referring to biochips when it comes to the surface population, so it may include the surface population. Again, quote unquote, ahead of schedule, which isn't just fantastic news. Folks, this is how you accelerate planetary liberation. I'm hoping to release a video one time soon. It's kind of like a pilot placeholder video for now, to just for free, not as an ad or anything like that. Just see the responses. Little test, because it emphasizes acceleration of planetary liberation and how to actually do that, manifest that. 144K has the track record and the culture, by the way. And, if you're a Starseed, listen to this, you're not a 144K member yet, and you've already been involved in some mass meditations with other Starseed groups, or so-called influencers, and 20 minutes, usually on a Sunday, which is nice. It does help, which I appreciate and respect. But if you want to be a part of something, of a culture that the 144K has, and you're willing to go for a serious journey for an hour or two, because you don't have to be fully active the whole 2 hours. You're connected to your soul. You're shown how to tune in a certain way to receive your soul-derived soul mission task for that particular moment in a given particular mass meditation, and you do your thing that only your soul and soul talents have been specifically tasked to do. Your unique soul mission. You're shown that. Okay. Again, the link is in the info box below. We are recruiting. And let's finish off with I'll be conservative and just call it another indicator of how the 144K contributes to moving things ahead of schedule consistently. And that is with, yet again, third-party confirmation of our success with accelerating direct off-world surface intervention through our diligent, consistent 144K mass meditations. And that is, quote, again, from the RM operative on the surface here, it's, been through hell as well. Quote, the light forces have already started the physical intervention on the surface by starting to remove directed energy weapons and other technologies. Okay, you got to note the keywords already started and on the surface. All right. The final proverbial battleground, I guess. And that is not just a huge confirmation of our success that we have diligently contributed to. Notice how I'm not saying caused, okay? Contributed to and helped ensure. But it's also cause for celebration of our efforts. That, consistency and being diligent pays off through expedited, faster, planetary liberation without half the world's population collapsing. Of course, we need to minimize casualties as well. And we're only 4 minutes over the top of the hour. That concludes this, yet again, another huge episode of Ground Crew Command, the official speaking platform of the 144K Mass Meditation, aka Starseed Group. Join below. The link's right there. And context, perspective. You have it now because that's everything, especially with what's coming with this huge, pivotal, potentially breakthrough Red October. It's looking good to be the real one. You want it to be the real one that goes the best way possible it could to actualize the highest timeline potential. Join the link. The link is just below this video. And participate on this coming super full moon, 144K mass meditation on October 6th and 7th. If you want to join that and get the precise live broadcast links and the link for your particular time zone, become a 144K member, participate. That's how you get yourself free faster. There's a hard road and there's the easy road. Believe it or not, we're actually on the easy road, but it can be made easier and quicker. Let's make it happen, folks. Let's join together, stand in solidarity, lock arms together, and march in that one bright direction. You have a decision to make. This is Ground Crew Command Radio. You've been listening to your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior. See you on the 144K Super Full Moon Mass Meditation in barely two or 3 days from now, time zone dependent.